My name's Dan Lister. I'm a cloud developer on the cloud platform team at Umbraco. I've been working here for about just under 1 year. I've used Umbraco since about 2012, kind of on and off. Yeah, that's kind of me. I'm on Twitter and various other places like Instagram if anyone fancies a chat. But yeah, let's get straight into it. So for this kind of talk, I'm going to talk about a couple of things. It's kind of split into two halves, really. We're going to talk about projects and how we can create version 9 projects in Umbraco Cloud. We're going to talk about repositories and deployments and how they are different compared to V8 projects. And we'll also give a really quick overview of the features of the portal and how they're same for V9 projects. And then the majority of the talk will be about upgrades and kind of a technical deep dive into how we upgrade thousands of projects at the same time. So if we start at projects, I'll just give a quick run through of how you create a V9 project on Umbraco Cloud. It's exactly the same way as before. V9 is now the default when creating projects on Umbraco Cloud. So if you were to select the Umbraco Cloud option, when you create a project, we can then select our plan. And we've got various different plans which cater for different needs. So the starter plan's a really good kind of entry point for testing Umbraco Cloud if you wanted to. And then next we just enter some information, and here we can specify the name. You can always create a version 8 project if you wanted to, but who wants to do that? V9 kind of all the way, I guess. And then we can also select some baselines as well, which I'll kind of talk about a little bit later. And after all that's done, in a couple of minutes, we should have your lovely version 9 Umbraco project on Umbraco Cloud, and you'll be ready to start building. Kind of one other thing to kind of mention with regards to Umbraco Cloud. So recently we've changed the infrastructure behind Umbraco Cloud. We kind of manage all the infrastructure for you, so you don't really have to worry about storage, kind of networking or databases and etc. And it's quite nice, really, because you get kind of a fixed monthly bill, and you know exactly what you're paying for. So given that we've got a nice new version 9 project on Umbraco Cloud, I just want to kind of talk a little bit about the new repository structure. So the first step after creating your version 9 project will be to clone the repository. And we've made some improvements to this recently. So we've introduced friendly URLs to the git clone URL, which is super useful. What this means is that for every repository you clone from Umbraco Cloud, you only have to enter your git credentials once, which will save you lots of time. It just means you don't have to log in over and over again. So once we've cloned our repository, we've got a repository in a fairly standard structure compared to most repositories now these days. We've got plenty of helper files in there, which should help you start building your sites even quicker. One of the cool files we've got is a README file. So this contains everything you need to know in order to start developing and building your version 9 Umbraco sites. I've also got instructions including how to build on Mac as well as Windows, which is super cool. We've also got a little bit more information in here to do with the repository structure, how to rename your projects, for example, and what the cloud build process looks like. We've also got a .umbraco file, which is super important to how Umbraco Cloud works. So this tells Umbraco Cloud where your project where your project lives, so where your website lives. One of the great advantages to this is it means you can restructure your repository to however you like, because kind of not everyone works in the same way. So as long as you change the csproj line within this file, Umbraco Cloud will know where your project lives. So that's pretty cool. And in the source folder, we've got our Umbraco project, which is our main website. And in there, we can find our project file, which is super slim compared to version 8 projects. We've also got the addition of an Umbraco Cloud JSON file. So we have this for every project. So this contains things like environment settings, Umbraco ID settings, and other keys that we use to run your project on Umbraco Cloud. What's cool now, obviously with .NET 5 and whatnot, we can create new projects within your repository. So we can use the .NET new class lib command to create a new project. And we can also add solution files to Umbraco Cloud projects as well, which is super awesome for people, well, users who use Visual Studio. And ta-da, we have a nice new Umbraco Cloud project opened up in Rider, which is lovely. So we've made some changes locally to our repository. So kind of what happens next when we've made our changes and we want to deploy them to your website. So this is where deployments come into play. As per any cloud site or repository, the first step will be to stage your changes. Then using those staged changes, we can commit those changes with a friendly commit message, and we can push those commits to your cloud repository. So I guess what happens next when you've pushed a collection of changes or commits to your origin? I guess that's kind of where the magic happens, which is actually quite cool what happens under the covers. So it's fairly standard, I guess, really, but still super cool. So for each push, we take the latest commit and we restore the packages in all projects within the repository. We also build the project to make sure everything's okay. We compile the project and all its dependencies. And then lastly, we publish the website referenced in the .umbraco file, and we take the output and that's published to the website. And just like that, in a couple of minutes, your changes have been deployed to your website. So that's pretty much kind of the new workflow, I guess, with not necessarily new workflow, but the new structure with V9 projects. So I just wanted to quickly run through some of the portal and just highlight how much has changed for version 9. And to be fair, it's exactly the same as version 8 projects. So I'll just give a quick run through. Yep, so the portal will look exactly the same as it did for version 8 projects. Your environment and features will be pretty much, the same. So we can add and remove environments at the click of a button to your version 9 projects, and we can deploy changes between environments really quickly. We can also check out some of the log files associated to your V9 project, and you can also download them if you want to. And here we can inspect each of the log files in your version 9 site as well. We can also restart your V9 environments through the portal, which is super useful. And we can add and remove host names to each of your environments. We've also got webhooks, which work on V9 as well. So if you wanted to hook into any of your deployments and run some kind of like background workflows, we can do that with webhooks, which is really cool. And we can also view some usage statistics for your version 9 projects. As you can see here, I've been super busy creating content and whatnot. So yeah. You can also amend your database firewall rules to open up access to your V9 database, which is cool as well. And if you need some extra features or resources, you can upgrade your version 9 projects in the same way as you did with version 8 projects as well. So for version 9, we have the awesome Umbraco Deploy as well as the tool for pushing content, document types, templates, and other things to other different workspaces. We also have forms in every single V9 project as well, which is super cool. We've also got Umbraco ID, which is one of the, I personally think, one of the best features of Umbraco Cloud. So with one set of credentials that you have, you can log into the back office of all your projects and also the portal to manage your projects as well. So it just saves lots of time, I think. And we also have baselines for Umbraco 9 projects too. So you can push changes to other child projects from a single place, which is super useful. So this is kind of where it goes in a little bit more technical, I guess. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about how we upgrade all the projects we have in Umbraco Cloud. So for the new infrastructure and version 9 projects, and not to sound like I don't want to say the name, but another company, but we've completely re-engineered upgrades from the ground up. So here's I guess a little technical deep dive into how upgrades work. So when we have a new version of Umbraco, or deploy, or forms, each project will be shown an upgrade available banner. So you can click the Get Started button to upgrade your project. So I guess what kind of actually happens when you click the button to upgrade your V9 project? Kind of like, how is your project and all its environments upgraded to the latest version? So when you click the upgrade button, away and kind of isolated from your website, what we do is we take your repository, we clone it, we update some of the package references within your repository across all your project files. We then build that and make sure it can be published correctly. So if the build is successful, what we do, we commit the changes, we push and deploy the changes to your website. And this is where unattended upgrades come into play. So it makes it super useful and super easy to upgrade your website. And yeah, there's no more waiting for your upgrade to finish. Some of the additional checks we also do is we perform homepage status code checks. So we take a snapshot of the homepage before and after the upgrade. And what we do is we compare the status codes of when the upgrade has been applied. If things break, we are notified and we'll kind of get on the case. So if everything's cool, just like that, your version 9 project has been upgraded to the latest version, which is awesome. So the average time it takes to upgrade a version 9 project on the new infrastructure for building your project, for upgrading your project, sorry, is around 6 minutes, which is super quick. And what that means is you'll have more time for other things and more time for making your customers happy, which is cool. So that's kind of describes kind of what we call the manual upgrade process. And we also have something called automatic upgrades. So when a new patch is released, we automatically upgrade any project on that particular minor version to the latest patch. So this is where we use Azure Durable Functions to perform and orchestrate the automatic upgrade of thousands of projects at a time. So Azure Durable Functions are an extension to Azure Functions, and they let you write stateful functions in a kind of serverless environment. And one of the nice features is it lets you define workflows via something called orchestrations. Now orchestrations are what we use to automatically upgrade thousands of projects, which we'll describe a bit further on. So kind of for each new release, one of the first things we have to do, we have to find all the eligible projects within Umbraco Cloud. This is actually really super complex. So we have multiple different products and components across all the projects on cloud, and customers can upgrade projects themselves. So they don't necessarily have to go through the manual upgrade banner that we saw earlier. So what we have to do every night, we run a batch process which looks at each website, looks at the assemblies within each website and stores the version numbers in a Cosmos DB, so that when we come to automatically upgrade, we've got an updated list of kind of the assembly versions everyone's running. So that helps us keep everything up to date. Once we've got that list of projects eligible for a release, we populate a queue with all basically for one project, we put one message on a queue. And then using Azure Durable Functions, we start and trigger an orchestration. So this single orchestration is responsible for consuming a set amount of messages from the queue. So it could be 50 at a time, it could be 100, it could be 500. And what this orchestration does after it's collected, say 50 messages from a queue, it creates a sub-orchestration for each message, so for each project. And what the responsibility of the sub-orchestration is to do is to create, is to start upgrading the development environment first. So for this, we create an Azure container group. And in with the Azure container group, we create a single container to perform the upgrade. And within that container, what we do is similar to the manual upgrade process. We clone the repository, we update all the package references and build the project. Now we do that in complete isolation to the actual running website. If everything's cool so far, within that running container, we commit and push the changes and we deploy the upgrade to the development environment. And again, that's where unattended installs, upgrades kick in, and the development environment will be upgraded. And again, we also compare the homepage status codes before and after, just to make sure the upgrade hasn't broken the site. If everything's okay with the development environment, we repeat the process on the staging environment. So we delete the development upgrade container and we change it to a staging upgrade container. And we'll perform the same upgrade to the staging environment. And if all is well, we'll repeat the process on the live environment. Again, making sure nothing's broken. So if an upgrade fails on the development environment, for example, what we do then is we stop the remaining environments from being upgraded. So the development upgrade container is removed, the container group is deleted, the sub-orchestration, which is the thing in the middle, is marked as complete. And when all sub-orchestrations are completed, or all upgrades within that batch of project upgrades are completed, the main orchestration will move on to the next batch of upgrades. And it will take another 50 or 100 or 200 project upgrades from the queue. And we'll basically repeat this process until the queue's empty. And one of the cool things is once we finish updating or kind of getting all the messages from the queue, that means our patch release has been deployed successfully. And throughout this whole process, we monitor this on Slack and we check the sites manually to make sure an upgrade has been rolled out correctly. So yeah, that's kind of the overview of automatic upgrades. And what's really nice is we use this same process for manual upgrades. So when you click the button in the portal to get started and upgrade, we perform the same workflow. And one of the nice things is it's super quick and it's super isolated from your running website. So the actual container that we use to perform the upgrade is what we call an upgrade executor. So this is actually an application in the container, and it's actually not that simple. It wasn't that simple to make, sorry. So when we copy in assemblies, for example, for V8 projects, or for V8 projects or V7 projects, we have to check the version numbers of every single assembly being copied across, as well as third-party assemblies, because version numbers change. Kind of the schemes that package developers use or NuGet packages have, they change their version scheming. So, for example, an early version could be running V4 of a particular assembly, but in the next version, it goes down to V3, but a different property within that assembly is V5, for example. And we've also got different versions of .NET. So we've got .NET Core projects and we've got .NET Framework projects. So we have around, I think it's 5 different upgrade executors. So we have kind of one for 7, version 8, version 9, and some other ones as well. So I guess why do we use Azure Durable Functions for upgrading or automatically upgrading lots of projects at a time? One of the main reasons is scale. We can run a large number of upgrades at any one time, and orchestrations in Azure Durable Functions make it super easy. So the orchestrator is automatically responsible for making sure it processes all the upgrades in the queue, and it's also responsible for making sure it moves on to the next batch of upgrades once the current batch has been completed. And this is really great for scaling out upgrades. So we can do 5 at a time, we can do 10 at a time, or 100. Another reason is time, really, because we can run each upgrade in its own container. It's extremely quick, and it doesn't have to wait for any other projects to finish upgrading, which is nice as well. And finally, the last reason is isolation. Now, this is really cool, I think. So because we run the upgrade in a a container, we build it within a container, and we use the same deployment mechanism as you would when building a website locally. The upgrade's performed in isolation, so it doesn't take resources from the running website. It doesn't affect the running website's performance, which is super important. Yeah, so that's kind of upgrades in a nutshell, I guess. So I kind of wanted to do a little case study. It's a bit of a strange case study because it's about me, which is a little weird. So many moons ago, around 2012 to 2016, I used to work for a multi-brand and multinational company. So we had around 200 different brands in about 80 different markets. And I was part of a team responsible for building, hosting, and maintaining, I think it was around 70 Umbraco websites in 80 or so different markets. And we used to spend a lot of time upgrading and maintaining sites. So much time that we had 2 people employed to do upgrades on a full-time basis. So that was things like copying databases, fixing upgrade issues, opening Visual Studio, updating packages, kind of all the things related to a manual upgrade. So kind of fast forward about 5 years, I joined Morton's team, Umbraco, and one of the first things I was asked, I was kind of like, "Hey Dan, do you fancy helping out to write a new upgrade service?" Which okay, Siri. Yeah, so that was kind of ironic, really, considering I spent 4 years working as part of the team and helping out with upgrades. So I was definitely up for the challenge. So a couple of sprints later, we ran the first batch of test upgrades or upgrades on projects, and boy, could I have done with that a long time ago. It was so cool to see the amount of time and the amount of effort it would have saved us. Yeah, we'd have got so much time back. So upgrades on Umbraco Cloud, kind of for me personally, are super awesome. Really worth their weight in gold. Yeah, that's kind of the case study. So we've got some upcoming features for Umbraco Cloud, which I thought I'd like to share. So one of the first thing is we're just looking at adding more regions to Umbraco Cloud. So when you create a new project, you can select what region your website's hosted in, which is super nice. You'll soon also be able to change Cloudflare cache settings directly from the portal, which again will be super awesome. And then we've also got plenty more security features coming along. And I guess that's been me. So I hope this has been somewhat useful or insightful into how we tackle upgrades and also version 9 running on Umbraco Cloud. Yeah, just thanks so much for listening and hope you have a cool rest of the day.